All right, hello wine drinking people. Today is Friday, the 23rd of March. Getting ready to take down a whole bunch of Lewis wines this evening. Randy and Debbie are in town, and some of you are saying, well, I didn't see that on the calendar. What happened? Well, it's been sold out for a month. Just like this Shafer event that we did 2 weeks ago was sold out for several weeks before the event. And, you know, if we don't have to send out an email promoting the event, we're not going to. But you can be rest assured we will review it. And we should put out an offering on Doug and John's wine every year. Doug, John, and Elias Fernandez, the winemaker. Doug, the son of John. John, the founder of the winery. We've done events with John. We've done events with Doug. We've done events with winemaker Elias Fernandez. All these guys, just great people. Fun people to hang out with and drink. Those are the kind of people I want to drink their wine. You know, the great late Jimmy Mansbach, when asked his favorite wines to drink, he said, I like to drink the wines of my friends, and that's the way that I feel, and the Shafers have always been good friends to us here at the Wine Watch and at Cafe Maxx. I'll never forget the last Collector Series dinners we did with Doug. That's one of the dinners where we asked you, our wine-drinking people, to bring a bottle from your cellar, and that's your price of admission. And we had 10 vintages of Hillside Select in like 2 days. What an incredible event. Doug had a great time, as did everyone else that attended. And, you know, whenever we put a Shafer event on the calendar, it sells out in short order. And when are you going to get a chance to drink 8, 10 vintages of Shafer Hillside Select, along with the new releases and with Chef Oliver Saucy's cuisine? Forget about it. I mean, it was just an incredible evening. We started out with the current releases, the Red Shoulder Ranch. This is the one wine that these guys made that just was not up to the same level of quality as everything else. Well, they did some research. They found Chardonnay doesn't grow where the winery is very well. They had to go and search for a vineyard where Chardonnay would do much better, and this is CARNEROS and this Red Shoulder Ranch property they started to develop. And in 1994, they came up with the first grapes from this wine, and they tried making a blend with the other grapes, and they said, you know what? This wine is so good by itself. We're just going to sell the other grapes off in bulk, and that's what they did. They made a tiny amount of 1994 Red Shoulder Ranch, just a killer Chardonnay from day one. This 2009, showing that lovely, rich concentration of the fruit that these small berries have. They've selected 5 clones that produce really small berries, so you get wonderful concentration. And this wine stays in oak for almost 2 years. You know, when you get that concentrated and rich fruit, it can handle a lot of oak contact. And this is a big, full-blown, rich California Chardonnay, some butter toast, some vanilla spice shown in this as well, but a lot of super rich and concentrated fruit to match it. Smooth and creamy texture on the tongue, loads of fruit, loads of oak, and wonderful freshness. This wine has got it all, and a box of chocolates. All right, the Shafer Merlot. What do we love about Shafer Merlot? It is yummy. It is delicious. A very ripe and forward style of Merlot. Dark cherry and plum fruit, milk chocolate notes on the nose. Some sweet herbs showing there as well. Very unctuous on the palate, and just lovely, smooth, and velvety tannins, and that milk chocolate and light tobacco spice showing through on the finish. This wine has 20% Cabernet Sauvignon added into the blend for a little structure. The 1.5 Cabernet Sauvignon, a little confusing when they released this wine a couple years ago. They wanted to go back to the Stag's Leap appellation, cut out the purchased fruit, and commemorate the 1.5 decades of John and Doug working together. But 1.5 also means a magnum, so some people are a little confused at this description. But hey, the wine is killer, all right? No matter what you call it, it's got about 2% Petit Verdot in the blend, and dark berry and cassis fruit showing, Kirsch, some pretty violet floral notes showing, sweet tobacco, really rich and concentrated on the tongue, but smooth and round tannins. This wine very forward and drinkable right now. This 08 vintage, another outstanding vintage in Napa Valley. Some lovely cocoa and tobacco spice on the finish. Excellent Cabernet Sauvignon. 2008 Relentless Syrah. This was a wine that was made to commemorate Elias Fernandez's relentless pursuit of perfection, of making great wine. And this is a field blend of 25% Petit Syrah from a ridgetop vineyard just south of the Stag's Leap district, and 75% Syrah. Some dark blackberry and blueberry jammy fruit on the nose here. A full array of that violet and sweet balsamic, dark chocolate, really well-endowed bouquet here. Thick and chewy on the tongue with firm tannins and an array of sweet tobacco spice and almost bourbon-like toasty oaks nuance on the finish. Most excellent juice. This got at least 1 vote for Wine of the Night, folks. That's right. Even with the lineup of Shafer Hillside Select that we had next, we had 9 vintages of Shafer Hillside Select. An incredible array showcasing the 80s, the 90s, and this last decade. And these guys definitely making the best wine of their career right now. And they should be. The technology, the vines are getting older. This wine was made for the first time in 1983. They did actually make a reserve the year before, the 1982, made mostly from the Sunspot Vineyard. As this Shafer Hillside Select has pretty much been a blend of several vineyard blocks on the property: John's Folly, Sunspot, Rattler, and Lookout. It sounds like all ski runs. Well, because they are ski runs. Okay. Well, that's what they named their vineyard blocks after. And, you know, this gives them the ability to blend and have the option to make a great wine from different vineyard sites every year. Call it Hillside Select. And even in vintages, not great vintages like 2000, as we found in this tasting in 98, this wine excels. One of the wines of the vintage and off years. That is the sign of a great producer, folks. And, you know, when you have 8, 9, 10 vintages of a wine like Hillside Select, you really get to see the terroir. And this is a terroir-driven wine. This vineyard site, very unique, one of the top sites in Napa. You notice that unique earthy component to all of these wines, and that lovely velvety silky texture that this vineyard site also provides. Well, the 89 vintage out of Magnum, not considered such a great vintage in Napa, but this wine still had a lot of life left in it. Maybe it was because in the Magnum, some damp earth and dark chocolate, cigar box spice, and dark currant cherry fruit showing on the nose, but the focus kind of shifting more to that earthy side, and a bit of a beef stew kind of character that you get in older California cabs, which blows off a little time in the glasses. This wine did. Still quite fresh on the palate, though, and, you know, really nice. That's one of the things about older wines. The fruit may be fading a little bit, but it still has that freshness and makes you want for a second glass. You know, really nice, and a little bit of that milk chocolate and damp earth showing on the finish there. If you had the 750 in your cellar, you may want to drink this wine up because it's probably not as fresh as the Magnum example we had. The 1996 and 97, two great vintages back to back, and then the 98 are next. 98 not considered a great vintage, but the 96 and 97, both killer wines. If you've got these wines, they've got 10 years or more left in your cellar. 96, an excellent vintage, but somewhat forgotten about because 1997 got so much press. This wine had a lovely spiced tobacco and cedar-like aroma and fresh plowed earth shown to that dark cherry and currant berry fruit. Note of black pepper spice also creeping in there. Smooth and silky on the palate with that chunky cassis and currant berry fruit. Drinking at or near its peak right now, but should continue to hold for another decade or more. Killer juice. The 97 just had an incredible array of dark spices, cigar wrapper, soy, cocoa, cassis, currants. Very well endowed on the nose and wonderful richness, reminiscent almost of like an Australian Shiraz. You know, this wine edged out the 96 in the end, but both were killer and displayed qualities that this wine's going to last a decade or more in your cellar. 98, a vintage not highly regarded in Napa, but, you know, this is where great producers shine, and they probably didn't make as much of the 98, but this vintage drinking at or near its peak right now, really showing lovely velvety silky tannins along with aromas of that cigar box spice, cedar, dark damp earth, espresso, cocoa, really nicely evolved here, and like I said, drinking at or near its peak. It should continue to plateau here for the next 3 to 5 years, but if you have the 98 in your cellar now, would be a good time to start drinking it. 2000, also not considered a great year. We still have this wine in Magnum formats. Another surprise. No one thought this wine would be as good as it was, but man, Shafer produced another most excellent wine from an inferior vintage. Truly, as I said before the sign up, a great producer. It had a bit of that evergreen quality that you get, little pine nuts to that currant and cherry berry fruit. Some dried tobacco spice and fresh earth minerality. Lovely smooth and round tannins on the tongue, and that sweet fruit and good freshness showing right through to the end, along with that minty note. Most excellent juice. The 2001, 4, and 6 were our young bucks, and the 2001, a candidate for wine of the night, a classic vintage in Napa, and this wine had a lovely concentration of cassis and currant berry fruit, toasty oak spice, really plummy and sweet tobacco, dark chocolates. The biggest and most complex wine, I think, on the nose, rich and ripe on the palate. This wine still has a lot of primary fruit, big tannins, and needs a bit of time to resolve these, but a firm backbone of acidity, leading me to believe this wine's got decades in your cellar. Killer juice. The 2004 probably got the most votes for the wine of the night. I would have picked 01 over 04. I think a much better vintage overall, but this 04, most excellent. Lovely dark spices, sweet tobacco, espresso, currant berry fruit, cassis, kirsch, dark chocolates. very well-endowed bouquet of aroma, still very young on the palate, having a lot of tannins. But, you know, like I said, velvety. This wine has got this hallmark velvety feel on your palate, even when it's young, and lovely freshness here, lovely layers of fruit, very, very long finish, most excellent juice here. And then the 2006, I think the 04 just edged out the 2006 for me a little bit, showing signs of that cooler vintage, a little bit of that evergreen nuance of that pretty cigar box spice, and a little pine, cassis, and dark currant berry fruits, a little dark chocolate also showing up there, big and chewy on the tongue, but with that hallmark velvety smoothness of the Hillside Select, chocolatey, toasty oak notes showing through on the finish, the 2006. An outstanding wine. That's what we had to drink, the Shafer Hillside Select Vertical Tasting, folks. I'm your host, Andrew Lampasoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.